Now imagine this, you suddenly find yourself out of a job, you're aged over 55, with nothing but your savings to keep you going. You're applying for work, but you're not having much luck. How long should you have to wait before receiving welfare support? Well, currently, Australians in that predicament with more than $18,000 in savings can expect to wait 13 weeks before receiving the Newstart allowance. But the government wants to double that waiting period, known as the liquid assets test waiting period, to 26 weeks or 6 months. If you've got a viewpoint to share on that, 1300 560 222. It's part of the government's revived Welfare Payment Integrity Bill, which is up for debate in Canberra this week. It's been criticised as mean and short-sighted by some opposition and crossbench members and welfare groups. But Social Services Minister Anne Ruston says the measure will help secure the long-term sustainability of the welfare system and make sure taxpayer funds are going to those that need it most. Now, she believes people with over $18,000 in savings should be dipping into their own funds before expecting welfare payments. Linda Burney is the Shadow Social Services Minister. Linda Burney, good afternoon to you.
Good afternoon, Andrew.
Now, do you agree with the principle that people should be using their own financial resources before expecting welfare payments?
This tactic by the government is nothing short of a cash grab. What it is doing, it is going to affect people who have worked for 20, 30, 40 years, usually in the same industry, and for some reason or other that industry's either moved offshore or gone out of business. People will get a redundancy payment, which is the only thing between them and absolute poverty. And I don't believe people should have to run down that payment or run down those savings to qualify for a social security benefit if they have genuinely been put out of work or they've become unwell or they qualify for a youth allowance or study. It is a mean and cruel trick by the government that is simply there to save revenue.
But that principle, that people should be using their own financial resources before expecting welfare payments, do you agree with that?
I think the government has said repeatedly, and I'll come to your question, said repeatedly that they've got the most people, least people ever or for a long time on welfare. Well, let me tell you why. It has become so complex and so difficult that many people have just given up, and that renders people into difficult homelessness and dangerous positions. The government's position on liquid assets, doubling the waiting time from 13 weeks, remembering there is a waiting time now and that's 13 weeks, to 26 weeks, and having people run down every single cent that stands between them and disaster is not appropriate, and no, I don't agree with it.
Now, you mentioned that this will affect disproportionately older workers. What evidence do you have that that would be the case?
Well, what we do know is that the number of older workers, and that's the number of over 50 people over the age of 55, who are forced to go on to Newstart, has surged by 45% in the last few years. The number of people who are older on Newstart is absolutely astronomical compared to what it was a few years ago. And this sort of myth that people on Newstart are young and and don't want to work is simply a myth. And I am quite fed up, Andrew, with people who are on social security being demonised by this government.
Linda Burney, Shadow Social Services Minister, thanks for coming on.
Thank you, Andrew.
Have your say. Text Andrew Collins on 0448 922 6.